Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the BFA class review series. My name is Mr. Couchy, and I will lay out for you some of the changes affecting protection warriors going into battle for Azeroth. Although we are close to the end of beta, some of this is still subject to change, so don't take everything said here as law. Prot warriors just didn't get the love they deserved in Legion. It was an extremely fun spec, having an answer to almost any situation you could think of, and the damage it could output would make me quiver like a shiver you get after a pee. They had crazy movement, a decent damage mitigation CD for your group, an intercept inspiring presence and commanding shout, and an AoE 5-second stun and shockwave. Warrior gameplay was great in Legion, except for maybe the spamming of ignore pain. That was a pain you just couldn't ignore. It just didn't have the tools to live in very high Mythic Plus, but were viable tanks and raids. Let's see what they decided would be better. The biggest change is how block will be going forward in BFA. Block now uses similar scaling to armor itself, allowing it to be more gear-driven, to make upgrades matter and allow content to be tuned around block values versus non. Battle Shout has returned for all warrior specs, giving 10% attack power for your entire raid. Recklessness, formerly Battle Cry, and Ignore Pain have been changed or removed. Commanding Shout has been renamed Rallying Cry and now increases raid members' health temporarily and maximum by 15% for 40 yards. Your new Ignore Pain, you fight through the pain, ignoring 50% of the damage taken, up to a certain total amount of damage prevented. Avatar generates 20 rage and is now baseline. Intimidating Shout causes your targeted enemy to cower in fear, and up to 5 additional enemies within 8 yards to flee. Targets are disoriented for 8 seconds. Shockwave, you send a wave of force in a frontal cone, causing a bunch of damage and stunning all enemies within 10 yards for 2 seconds. The cooldown changed from 40 seconds to 30 seconds and is now baseline. Deep Wounds, your Devastator, Devastate, and Revenge also cause bleed damage over 15 seconds. Bleeds now scale with haste, which makes this even stronger throughout the whole expansion, as it will do well with a certain talent we will cover shortly. Demoralizing Shout demoralizes all enemies within 10 yards, reducing the damage they deal to you by 20% for 8 seconds. The cooldown has been changed from 1.5 minutes to a 45-second cooldown. This is crazy. Virtually every pack you face will be doing 20% less damage on top of shield block. This is a huge buff. Last Stand, it increases current and max health by 30% for 15 seconds and instantly heals you for that amount. Your Mastery critical block increases your chance to block by 1% and your chance to critically block. It also increases your attack power. Shield block, you raise your shield, blocking all melee attacks against you for seconds. These blocks can be critical blocks, and increases shield slam damage by 30% while active. Its cost has been changed from 15 rage to 30, and the cooldown changed from 30 seconds to 18 seconds. Shield slam now generates 15 rage instead of 20. Spell Reflection, you raise your shield reflecting spells cast on you and reducing magical damage you take by 15%, which lasts 5 seconds or until a spell is reflected. Thunderclap now reduces movement speed by 20% instead of 50%, making it slightly more difficult to kite. Unwavering Sentinel reduces the chance you will be critically hit by melee attacks by 6%, and reduces the chance your attacks will be parried by 3%. Any other abilities I did not mention received minor wording or number changes that don't really affect the gameplay. The addition of Avatar and Shockwave baseline feel really good, but the CD on shield block intensifies the need for haste as a main stat even further, but we'll see some energy with Deep Wounds. Booming Voice, Inspiring Presence, Renewed Fury, Warbringer, Warlord's Challenge, Shockwave, and Avatar have all been removed as talents. The exception being Avatar and Shockwave have now been made baseline. A few really good talents in there, naming Booming Voice and Inspiring Presence. Hopefully the new additions are equally inspiring. Bolster, Last Stand's cooldown is reduced by 60 seconds and it additionally causes you to block all melee attacks. Dragon Roar, you roar explosively, dealing damage to all enemies within 12 yards, and reducing their movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. That generates 10 rage. Menace, Intimidating Shout disorients enemies for an additional 4 seconds, and it causes all enemies to cower in fear instead of fleeing. Punish, Shield Slam deals 20% increased damage and reduces enemies' damage against you by 3% for 9 seconds. Rumbling Earth, when Shockwave strikes at least 3 targets, its cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. Unstoppable Force, Avatar increases the damage of Thunderclap by 100% and reduces its cooldown by 50%. Very cool talent and allows the warrior a better tool to grab aggro from group to group in Mythic Plus. Some of these are great. Unstoppable Force and Bolster are definite upgrades, but we all know Dragon's Roar is kind of bleh. Anger Management has slightly changed. Every 10 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown on Avatar, Last Stand, Shield Wall, and Demoralizing Shout by a second. Best Served Cold, Revenge deals 5% more damage per target hit, up to 25%. Devastator, your auto attacks deal additional physical damage, generate 2 rage, and have a 20% down from 30% chance to reset the cooldown on Shield Slam. Indomitable is now a dead talent. It increases your max health by 10%. Into the Fray, you gain 3% haste for every enemy or ally within 10 yards, up to 15% haste. The slight addition of all ally makes this an incredibly strong talent choice, especially at low gear levels. Virtually makes you invincible while leveling. Never Surrender, Ignore Pain will prevent up to 100% more damage based on your missing health. Vengeance, Ignore Pain reduces the rage cost of your next revenge by 33%. And Revenge reduces the rage cost of your next Ignore Pain by 33%. One of my favorite talents in the game. Love how much planning is required to spice up the rotation and make you stronger. Having to decide if you have the globals to deal with more damage or mitigate some is really fun. And that's it for anything major, so what are we left with? Without Into the Fray, it doesn't feel great right now. With it, makes it such a great tank. Still so many buttons to press, and the change to Ignore Pain makes it less spammy and more about cooldown and GCD management. AoE threat isn't a problem anymore, and they have the tools to make them a great addition to any Mythic Plus or raid group. Their mobility is incredible, and some of the additions like Menace and Dragon Roar give the warrior many interrupt options when doing higher mythics. Having Anger Management affecting Avatar and Demoralizing Shout is going to make you one of the higher damage tanks, and with a change to block, could have one of the smoothest intakes. Demo Shout every pack is just insane. How did you think Prot felt in Legion, and how do you think it will perform in BFA? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for sticking around, like and subscribe, and in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.